get it,
But when you do those short videos, people are going wild over them. And did you know that? Did you notice? Maybe he did one for you too. JMC Broadcasting did a short for me on talking about this because when Derek Johnson was generic about it and saying it's a few years ago and Fauci and stuff, I thought, well, wait a minute. He did it exactly because she lost the election,
Hmm.
in 2017. So when I shared that stuff, and we're at war here, and a lot of people still don't realize when's it all going to be fixed? And I know the movies, and I'm like, there is something like that going on, but we all have to understand we are at war. We have been at war. So,
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, it's ongoing war, and it's going to continue for, I think, for years. But
mhm.
in the meantime, we just keep revealing. Hopefully, it wakes up enough people, it makes a difference. Uh, but on this show, we're going to talk about your experiences at some events, bioweapon targeting, government holds rights to the invention of a bioweapon to use against us. Wow, that's pretty crazy.
And DOD is in on it with the UN. And didn't they just arrest someone? Because did you hear about the arrest in Norway from the Epstein files?
Yeah, it's the first
Okay,
arrest.
he was a premier or something in Norway. I don't know how it works. I don't know if they have a president or prime minister or premier. And they were mentioning that, and then just teeny little letters, and everybody's sliding over. And he was also the secretary general. Isn't the secretary general the UN?
Yeah, that sounds right. Secretary General.
So I haven't had a chance to even look up the name because that just happened today.
Yeah, I just caught it myself, so I haven't really looked too deeply into it. But they
Hmm.
have to have a lot of stuff on these guys if they're gonna arrest them and prosecute them.
Hmm.
It's an overwhelming amount of information. And I saw you kind of talk about that in this, where the judicial system is no longer of God,
Mm-mm.
and so that's got to get fixed. And the medical institution, the political system, I mean, educational system. So
Hmm.
which is of God anymore? So that's the challenge, to find anything that really is connected to God. And then once you find it, edify it, raise it up, and hopefully we can start to bring the good things forward, so that we can have love and peace in the world again. But in the meantime, we're gonna have to fight these guys.
Well, did you see the announcement when he right after he did the Board of Peace? Wasn't that brilliant? I don't think I've seen you since the Board of Peace where he got us out of the WHO, got us out of WEF, he got us restructured there that we're not going to be paying 75% of bombing and then rebuilding the other side of the world. We're going to take care of our neighbors in our side of the world, and we're not going to be doing in this whole UN thing. And what's really funny is nobody really noticed it. He brings the guys out, does the Board of Peace, has a banner behind as a Board of Peace. Caroline Levitt's there getting everybody signed and then getting all of it confirmed. She leaves the platform. This is all happening at WEF at Davos, and the president walks through and he shakes all their hands and thanks them for being part of the Board of Peace, and he leaves. And
Uh,
everybody's like, what the heck happened? So then what happens? Newsom, and I don't know if you've covered this probably already, Newsom goes back and signs a contract with the WHO, which he has no authority to do as a governor of a state. I'm like, they're so asleep and they're so being controlled. And they're just, when the truth is not in the mind, it's a reprobate mind.
mm,
The truth is no longer in it. That's all it means. When you no longer have the truth in your mind, you have a reprobate mind. So, like you said, the fight has been against, you can't have God in anything because he's life and truth. And so you can't have anything about him anywhere, and you got to kill all the truth speakers. It's one path for them. We all have to be gone. And people go, well, how is it so evil here? And I said, are you forgetting Satan was in the garden before Adam and Eve? It's that simple. Satan was here, and we've been dealing with him ever since. And this is the first time. This is the first time. And that's why I don't care if it takes another 200 years. It's not going to take that long to get the main stuff done. But guys, I don't care. This has to be done right because this is a battle for all of it, for all of it. So what the president did was set up as soon as he came back, he set up and he's done a call to all of us to have a day of prayer. But what he's wanting is we got to pray. And that's
oh
what
yeah.
when we did the eclipses, that's what that was about. When Jonah went to Nineveh and he said, you got to repent, you got to pray, or the king's going to be overtaken. So the king even got involved in it. Come on, let's all pray, And so that's what they did, and God relented. And then 100 years later, Nahum went, and it was over. God got his 10 tribes of Israel out, which is why they're the lost tribes ever since. So now here we have a president calling to us to pray on May 17. And I was invited to be in DC on the 27th. And here's what's funny. I was just on with Juan and Nino yesterday, and Juan was talking about the days. May 17 is exactly 51 days from July 5th. And why is that important? The sevens. It's 49 days leading up to July 4. Because what people don't realize is we're praying for divine intervention because we have never been independent. They call it Independence Day, but in 1781 we won the battle at Yorktown, but we never won the war. We have never won wars. That's what just let that sink in. We have never won. We are never independent. We've never been free. No culture lasts 250 years. And we are at the most miraculous point of any nation, of any culture in the world of all time since the garden. This doesn't happen where we're still fighting it out, and we're going to make it happen. And so however long it takes doesn't matter, but here we are. And that's why he said, I want to call forth a day of prayer. And Juan was just explaining it, that it's 49 days up to the 3rd, the 50th day, and then representing the golden day age after. That's a 50, like a jubilee. And then we're going to start counting our days like we're supposed to. We're going to start honoring the land, honoring each other, being good to our neighbors. He's proving it. We talked about Venezuela and everything. He's proving we're coming to the truth, and we're going to treat people right. We're going to handle things right. And he's got all these nations working with him. That's how he avoided the 8 wars. That's where we are. So in this, we didn't understand how much they wanted us dead by 2020, because 20s recycle into death. So 2020 was their ultimate genocide. So the depopulation on the Georgia Guidestones that I've talked about in all my books, that Georgia Guidestones was what we were battling, because they didn't want us on Earth. And it's been ever since Genesis 3:22. And that's why they erected them on 3/22/1980. So that battle has been a war. And that's why they've kept all of our men on the other side of the world. We've been bombing the other side of the world and rebuilding the other side of the world and bombing the other side of the world and building, and it just never stopped. And nobody realized we've been paying the UN and having them here, and all their diplomats coming and destroying us. And the stuff, the layers of this are so pervasive, but you made it so simple, Jaco, is that they removed God, they removed faith, they removed truth, and they've got us concerned about everybody, everything. Who can you trust? Who can you not trust? We've got to come to the absolute truth. And that's what this pray until, because what you were mentioning about what the government has done, they hold a % interest in businesses. And guys, that's against our Constitution. That's what Jefferson, Adams, and Monroe were all killed over. And did you know President Trump, and we haven't talked about this because I'm just finding this out, everything that he's doing now regarding cleaning everything up and just having Americans on the land of America legally, the reason he's doing it, he's calling it the Monroe Doctrine. Remember when we talked about the Monroe Doctrine, and they took out Monroe 5 years after they took out Jefferson and Adams? So 3 presidents in 5 years, all on July 4, because they're laughing the whole time. They know that we aren't independent. They know that we haven't accomplished any of this. And those guys fought for no corporation, no business, no anything. And now corporations are over everything. The villages, the towns, the cities, the counties, the states, over the people, over. And so now, who was the first arrest today in the Epstein files? And it's the Premier of Norway, I think it was called. And then they just softly whispered. So look it up, guys. Do some research. Secretary General. And I think Secretary General is UN. So was this guy in Norway the leader of the UN at some point? Because they said it's not just going to be rulers. It's not going to just be kings. It's not going to just be all the people who are in these important positions. But what came out today, and I don't know if I retweeted it, but Elon was thanking him. They did a little, I don't know if it's AI, but they've got Bill Gates and Epstein on the coastline in the sand, and they got their swim trunks on, and they're saying, come on, Elon, come dance with us, come play with us, come party with us, like that. And Elon is saying, no, thanks. He replied to their tweet today. I don't know if you saw that yet. It was adorable. but it came back from Elon. He responded to it. And General Flynn was saying, thank you, Elon, they're going to keep trying to get us.
Yeah. So I looked that up. It's as of mid-January 2026, several high-profile Norwegian figures are facing criminal investigations and charges following the release of new documents in the Jeffrey Epstein case, including former prime minister and top diplomat. So Norway's former prime minister, Thorbjørn Jagland, has been arrested. That's the first arrest, I guess. So he's been charged. Police searches and suspicions. Norwegian police searched several of Jagland's properties after evidence emerged alleged ties to Epstein. Immunity has been waived. Council of Europe waived Jagland's diplomatic immunity. Wow. And then a diplomat couple investigated, former Norwegian diplomat Mona Juul, who resigned recently as ambassador to Jordan and Iraq, and her husband are both under investigation. Crown Princess Merit, Norway's crown princess, apologized for her past friendship with Epstein, acknowledging she did not understand the gravity of his background at the time. Okay. So eventually that's probably going to be proven otherwise. I think all of them are just involved in all of that depravity. We call them the elite, but all of them are involved in this, incredible depravity, sexual depravity with children. And it's not anything new to them. That's something they've been, doing for generations, thousands of years even.
The Pilgrims knew. They knew the grooming of the children due to the Gentile worship, and they banned churches for 500 years. I'm scrolling through trying to find, there's a Pritzker that he either owned all the Hyatts or he's the president over the corporation of the Hyatts.
Oh, yeah.
The Hyatt hotels. Yep. And he's like a first cousin to the governor of Illinois, Pritzker. Right. And Pritzker is named. And so now he's sorry that he's done this, but he's disappeared. He's on the run. And I don't know how far I think he can run. But I'm looking, I thought I forwarded it.
Yeah, he's pretty big man. So, he's going to have somebody help him out with that running.
But he's a cousin to the governor. So is the governor also, nobody's saying anything. Now, here's what's funny. And I know we want to get into the what they've been doing with this bioweapon stuff. But here's what's really funny about all this stuff. They gave devices to everybody in Congress. Okay. So if there's 600 million documents, videos, and that's 600 million items. And so they gave half of them to them, and they gave them on devices. And so wouldn't it be funny? Because everybody said, did you know what they're doing? They're tracking to see if they're searching their names, or they're searching their neighbors, or they're searching other people, right? So who do they know that was on island? And are they worried that they were on the island and they don't want anyone to know? So they're doing all these searches. And you know what would be really funny? If all this extra time was taken to move all of their names to the second release. Wouldn't that be amazing that they don't show up in this release? So because everybody's gone silent. Have you noticed how quiet everybody is?
Yeah, they're all clamoring for these Epstein files to be dropped, but yeah. They thought that Trump was going to be on those, and he is. He's on them for contacting the police. Keep an eye on Jeffrey Epstein because he saw that he was very suspicious.
Well, and remember that there was a case. It was 92, 93 down in Florida, and somebody said Pam Bondi was AG then and involved. I don't know, but Dershowitz was the attorney, and he got him off. But the president was the only one who volunteered. President Trump was the only one who volunteered to have the DA come and talk to him and ask any questions he wanted to ask of him, and he could have as much time as he wanted. He's the only one that witnessed on all of it. Okay. Wow. So Dershowitz was proven in interviews to discuss that he was because evidently there's nothing about the ranch yet in New Mexico. And Dershowitz said he was invited, but it was a personal thing. It wasn't anything else. And he took his grandchildren. Dershowitz took his grandchildren to the Epstein Ranch in New Mexico and said that it was just a nice vacation location. And it was nice of him to offer that for having represented him, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Here we go.
That's very interesting. And I know you were just on with Scott McKay, and Scott McKay had mentioned, like many of us did, this Kazarian Mafia type group, and he was talking about them and how they were behind the scenes, manipulating. They were using the Jewish, religion as a cover, and in the background they're doing some evil stuff. Everyone knows that. I mean, that's everyone knows that. I mean, we can talk about that and we can, banter it back and forth. But Alan Dershowitz went on, I think it was Fox News and so forth, and somebody else, another high level person, and attacked Scott McKay personally on national TV. And then he couldn't go to the Trump Doral.
Called him an anti-Semite. I'll never forget it. And Rachel Maddow picked it up and
Rachel
said
Maddow, that's it. Yep.
There's going to be an anti-Semitic Trump event at the anti-Semitic. It was in front of everything. Anti-Semitic President Trump event at the anti-Semitic Trump Doral in Miami by the anti-Semitic son Eric giving a talk along with two anti-Semitic speakers, Scott McKay and Charlie Ward. And so 2 days before the event, in fact, the person who was picking Charlie up at the airport didn't know he wasn't going to be at the airport. And when he called him, he was still in bed in Spain. He hadn't even left. He goes, well, what's going on? And he goes, no, we can't do it. Yeah. Because it's too much against the president. But yeah, they've made it all about that. But I think when we talked about Quantico, because just right before the president was over in England, and when he came back between England, is this tight in the schedule? He came back from England, then he said, I'm going to meet, and then he had the summons go out for Quantico. And when the president said, I'm going to meet, he said, I'm going to meet with Bibi. And we all know it's Bibi Net and Benjamin Netanyahu. So I'm going to meet with Bibi. And for the first time ever, no president, no person in America has ever said this. I'm going to be meeting with him about the state of Israel. That's how it's registered in England. Just like we were registered in England as a corporation. It was a State of Israel, Inc. And people have never understood, and people say, guys, Israel is Jacob Israel in the 12 tribes and the lineage from that. There is no land of Israel. There is no, and that's what was called that. And when they said the promised land and where Moses took them, so there have been a lot of lies we have fallen for, because Moses was 500 years after Jacob Israel. Jacob Israel was 1906, and in 1400, here comes Moses. And then when he's 80, then he ends up taking them on the 40-year. So then he's 120. You see how you add these things that and then only Joshua and Caleb were the righteous ones who went in. And so to say that that's what it is, and we're to bless Israel, or we're to bless that. And Ted Cruz just got in the middle of the crossfire with Tucker Carlson. Did you see that? No. I just heard about this interview, and it was fireworks, I guess. He was saying, why do you wear this cap on your head when you're not? And he goes, it's to honor Israel because we're supposed to bless Israel. And he goes, what do you mean? Where do you know that we're supposed to bless Israel? He said, well, it's in Scripture. And he goes, well, where is it in Scripture? And what is it? What does it mean? And Ted couldn't answer any of these questions.
Wow. Ted just keeps falling on his face over and over again. That's just crazy.
You know who Ted is. Now that we're talking about Cuba, did you know that Ted's father is the guy who brought Castro into Cuba?
I didn't know that. I knew there was some kind of association, and with the first Trump going for president, Ted was like number 2. Trump was number 1, and they were like battling back and forth. And then Trump said, "Yeah, JFK assassination." Ted Cruz's father was there during that time frame, and he just said that, just like that.
Yeah.
And then Ted Cruz dropped out, I think, a couple of days after that.
Well, his dad moved to Canada. A woman in America gave up her American citizenship, became Canadian to marry him in Canada, and then they had baby Ted Cruz. So he didn't qualify to run for president. Now, where are the two parents from Rubio? Because people said, well, if not Ted Cruz, Sheila, then how about Marco Rubio? Because now look at everything he's doing to help our country. I said he's a great guy, and he can be in the position he's in without being natural born. But he was on the ballot to run for president, and he didn't qualify either. When we talked about the sheriffs and all of that, this is how a country gets taken over completely, because
Yeah.
the allegiance. So his parents are both Cuba. And so I wrote something out on Twitter and I just said, guys, we have to take care of our representatives in America. We have enough wonderful Americans that we need people 100% committed to America and no
Yeah.
longer have dual citizens in Congress. That is not the way it's supposed to be. And a
I
woman
agree.
wrote back to me and said, there's nothing wrong with dual citizens. And she used Jan Helper Hayes as an example. She said, she's a dual citizen, but she's brilliant. And I think the president has her in his administration. Are you saying the president is wrong? You can be involved in America. I'm not saying that. But to represent me in my state, you need to be an American, and it doesn't say that your parents have to be American, but you have to be an American. And if you have dual allegiance, then who is your allegiance to?
Yeah.
And people just don't want to understand that because it's been this way for so long, because we have been a captured operation from the beginning. We've talked about this. We
Yeah.
have talked about this.
Yep.
Point 43 in the book. Take them over before they're self-governing. Run the whole show, and they'll cooperate. So it's like we want President Trump to be a king and fix it all. We're still hearing it, but there's a lot of people who are awake, and I thank you guys. You're really getting busy doing what you have to do in your own communities. I've seen a major shift, so we're making great progress. Great progress.
Yeah, there's a lot of suppression. I've had Lewis Herms on. He's looking to be the next governor of California. Massive amounts of suppression. His platform is like way more advanced than anyone for any governorship, I think, in history. But yet I did a show with him, and I thought this is going his answers. He was very governor-like. I've known Lewis for several years now, and he has risen to the cause, and he's guided by God, I believe, very very strongly. And he's going after child trafficking. The corruption I think the corruption in California is going to be revealed to be on the past $1 trillion easily. Mm-hmm. And so he's going to do an audit the first day. He's going to have all the sheriffs come in. He's going to talk to them, constitutional sheriffs. So all these things that when everyone sees his platform, what he's about, they're like, we want this guy. But they're suppressing that. And they have some other people that they're pushing out in front like they normally do. It remains to be seen if he's going to win. But the views on that show were very suppressed. I thought like 13,000 views. I mean, we do shows and we get 50, 100, 130,000 views. He only got like 13,000 views. So people just aren't engaged and involved on the level that they should be, I think, still.
We need strong Americans who understand what's happened in this country. And I know he wouldn't want people medically affected or children abused the way they are. I mean, some of the guys that have looked at these Epstein tapes, they went ahead and opened the videos, and you can't get it out. Once you've seen it, you can't get it out of your mind. You just can't get it out of your mind.
I can't imagine.
So I can't either. But that is how there's only two kingdoms. There's one of life and one of death, and it means nothing to them. Juan was just mentioning, and I did not know, had not heard this about. I heard about the pizza. I heard about the hot dogs. I didn't hear about the chicken. Did you hear about the chicken? He mentioned about the chicken, and he said the chicken means a small boy. When Hillary was in trouble, I think during the election process, she said, well, I guess I'm going to have to make a sacrifice. And so I'm going to have to sacrifice a chicken, and that means a young boy.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa, you know what I mean? But we've been showing the symbols of the wearing the rings. This is boy love, where they do that, and then when they're done with them, they sacrifice them. We don't mean anything to these people. Life means nothing to them.
And they've been getting away with it for so long. They just do it and they don't care. And sometimes it's really in front of our face. Their cannibalism and all kind of crazy stuff that they do is getting more and more in our face, and just people seem to accept it. We go back 10, 20 years definitely back, and a lot of the stuff they're doing right now, they would have been run out of office so fast, ostracized. They wouldn't be able to walk the streets. But some of the stuff they do now, it's like people are conditioned to accept anything that they put out there.
It's happened forever. And you know what? The crazy part is they've never had to pay consequences. I can't imagine what it's like being in those elite families and in the secret societies, and you've never paid any consequences for all the horrible things that you've done. But that's why I thought it'd be kind of fun today. There's something behind me, and you see the cigarette is lit. There's been some trolling going on with this guy. Yeah. And I'm gonna give you the comparison. If you put, because everybody thinks Epstein is just this horrible, horrible, horrible person. And is he a satanic abused guy? Yeah, that's their belief system, guys. To them, that's what you do. They were grown up doing it. Yep. Their parents did it, and it's just that's their life. And we thought we were all the same. In fact, until COVID happened, you had to stand 6 feet apart from people and sit 6 feet apart in a church. You didn't know that people in the same pew didn't think like you did. All of a sudden, it started conversation of, well, do you know how they're doing this to us? And they go, no, we don't want to know either. We just want to get through this, you know. And I had relatives that were fighter pilots in Vietnam, rescue pilots in Vietnam, and they didn't want to get together because they haven't gone out in the public and they've stayed away from everything. And these are guys that were these amazing, magnanimous people in their life, and they just, you know, so you don't know what they're being told that they now believe in if their belief system is this, not much we can do. And that's why we've been saying, you know, guys, just you and yours, me and mine are fine. Let's just now keep uniting the people together, which is why they fought truth and they fought family. If you get the family completely disrupted and you get the generations fighting the generations, divide and conquer. That's where we are.
And you talk about 2020, you know, how they were trying to, you know, get us down to the Georgia Guidestone levels, I guess, 500 million for the world. That was a lot. That would have been like, what, 7.5 billion people they would have to remove from the world. So, you know, you have a very interesting slideshow that we're going to like run through. Here it is. So let's jump into this. And you have talked about this, like we talked about before the show, for several years now, but you've never really, you know, put it into this type of format where everybody can see the numbers and see who's involved and so forth. So thanks for doing this.
Well, I never talked about how bad it was for me. Nobody knew. Nobody knew, and I didn't mention it. I was in bed for 6 months. And then because I'm living, I found out all the layers, all the different poisons that I was dealing with and radiation. And we can go through, if you want to, we can go through this because it's the same thing Jefferson, Adams, and Monroe were fighting, is that the government can't hold a percent interest in any of this stuff. That the government can't be involved in any business. As Teddy Roosevelt told us, the government isn't something out there. And this is what they're telling the kids. The government will always be here for you. Your parents and grandparents are going to die. Because on the faith monument, your parents, they're the ones who train you in the way you should go. Nobody else influences that. That's your parents. And that's your right to have your parents train you, and then your grandparents mentor you. And they didn't want any of that because they know the truth, right? So they didn't want any of that. So by not having that, any of us that pop up, and that's why I called it a whack-a-mole game, any of us who popped up and wouldn't shut up saying the truth, they did this. And now President Trump, with getting all of this negative out, and I have brand new photos I just got on Monday night. On Monday night, a friend was flying back to California, and at the Oakland airport, you guys aren't far from there, in Oakland airport, the entire section of the airport was only for illegals. And they were all deporting to multiple nations. And it was all so organized, but these are ones that are choosing to deport because now they realize your number's up. So sooner or later, and if they come and get you and they detain you, you don't have ever a right to ever apply and try and come back into this country. Yeah, and so now it's really hitting them. So, but I can share those photos with you. But the rights that we have as an American to realize it, like Teddy Roosevelt was saying, the government's just you and I. You and I have to resolve all of this. It's we the people who do this. There is no government out there that So what did they do? They came in and they made it this. And the Monroe Doctrine about all this infiltration, we're going to reach a point of tyranny where we don't have a nation anymore. And what we got away from is on our soil. So President Trump, since we've been together, he has a new thing, and you may have already heard this or talked about it. It's the Donroe Doctrine. Just like Monroe Doctrine, you're calling it the Donroe Doctrine because he knows the government shouldn't have been doing any of this, and the government holding a percent interest. But as we led into this, I had not met Linwood in person. We were on a Christian TV channel 2 days apart back in 2020, and then in 21, he ended up being at this Spartanburg event. And I want you to focus on the guy talking to me because that's Presley Stutz. And he had me speak to the people in the morning. And then people were so shocked that they gave him a whole bunch of questions. So he invited me back and he was asking me the questions from the people in the morning to answer them for the people in the afternoon. This was 1 week before the event at Linwood's home. And everyone was having such a good time and everybody was feeling so good and everything seemed wonderful. And then the very next week, the next slide should be the gal. This gal was at Spartanburg, but she was in a wheelchair. And she said, the next time I meet you, I'm going to be out of my wheelchair and I'm going to give you a hug and I want the selfie because everybody was getting pictures with me in the hug and she didn't get it. And so as I'm leaving this event, she's standing there in the house waiting as I go out the door and said, I don't know if you remember. And I said, you must be Lisa. And she said, why? And I said, 1 week and you're doing this. I said, this is awesome. So she got her hug and got the picture. And Scott McKay looked at my eyes and he said, in this picture, and he goes, Sheila, you were already sick. I didn't see it until he told me. And he goes, Sheila, they've already got you.
Oh, wow.
I said, okay. And so then this is as I'm leaving the event, and that's at his Cotton Hall plantation in South Carolina. He's got 3. He's got Tomatley, where all the animals are, and then he's got the residence one where Ted Turner grew up. But his childhood home is Cotton Hall Plantation. And the black and white that they talk about, the black and white is painted on the wood floor. It's a wood floor, but they painted the black and white checkerboard, that they use for the programming of the children. The bedrooms in that house were still painted black with scratch marks on the walls. And the people who were involved in this took me up to the attic. And the attic, they filled it inside with tin and painted it. And you could see the scratch marks. And because that's how they get you to do what they want you to do is you go to the attic. If you can't be controlled today, you go to the attic. And so he was remodeling it. I don't know if it's done yet to make it a wedding venue. So it's going to be interesting bringing it out of a home like that and doing this. But that's where we were that night when we were all targeted.
Yeah, I've wanted to go there. So at some point I will. That's
well, when you
really
get out here, let me know, and I'll give him a call.
Oh,
but this
great.
is a Presley Stutz, powerful man, and he was actually, as you see on here, a Navy chaplain for 30 years.
Wow.
And he had just helped with Linwood running for the position. And he didn't run for a position to run the GOP in South Carolina, to run the GOP in South Carolina. He did it to prove the fraud and to prove that people didn't want anything to change in South Carolina. But nobody knew that the world order came until I came to the event that night on the 17th of July. Nobody knew that the world order is in Charleston, South Carolina, and you aren't going to change anything. Because right outside in Beaufort, and this is where all of this was going on, and then he's just inland from there. He's right in the heart of it. Because the main Shriners group, the Shriner Temple is called Islam. See, people, when they took the oaths, they didn't know what Ahura Mazda was, the ancient religion of all these people from Iran, originally out of Egypt. They didn't know what they were taking oaths to. And they take oaths to Isis, they take oaths to Allah. They didn't know in their lifetime, they'd never heard these names, never heard these words. And you take that oath that night, you never remember. Do you see what I mean? So they got
I
into
grew up
this.
in Columbia, South Carolina. My father and uncle were both Shriners. I was exposed to this. I was a lifeguard at the temple there in Columbia, South Carolina, but I could not tell you any of the deeper side of this stuff, I knew that they were all very close and looked out after each other, sometimes to a fault. But they, all of their, I mean, it's all like Middle Eastern iconography. You know, it's like, the big swords, and the way they dress, and the hats with the fez, and all. It's just Middle Eastern type stuff. So yeah, it's crazy Islamic. Yet these guys are Christian men, with all this Islamic, everywhere, and so it doesn't make sense.
But the original, if we go all the way back to ancient times over in that part of the world, because when Christ came, after all of those centuries before, when he came, there was Hebrew and there was Arabic. Hebrew was the people. The Hebrew, then they became the Hebrew Israelites. The Hebrews spoke Hebrew and the Arabs spoke Arabic. Okay. And Arabic is not Palestinian. Palestinian is the Philistines, the conquerors out of the Bible. So when we get to the truth of all of this, we don't know what we don't know, but that's why it's really interesting that the president started saying the state of Israel is what he's discussing with Netanyahu. And I'm going to share one more thing. I don't know that we have time to get into it today, but he rode in the king's carriage. And when we did the summons, he was His Excellency, the President of the United States. People don't realize King George, that George is named after, when we went through all of this in America, he was in charge, and he was the King of England, he was the King of Ireland, he was the King of France, he was the king of everything. And he was His Excellency, the President of the United States.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to just put a pin in it, and we can do that on another day, but just this is what we've been going through, and all of this that the Pilgrims got away from all came on the soil by the time of the Civil War. We've talked about that a little bit, but anyway, then by the time you get into the next slide, you start seeing what happened that night.
Yeah, and here you're mentioning that Presley Stutz, and 4 South Carolina GOP leaders went to the hospital. At what point did they go to the hospital? Was it at sometime after this event? Where do you think that everyone was infected?
That's the humor about how the targeting happens. And see, we were early people. Nobody knew any of this was going on yet. But then August, September, October, November, December, I lost so many friends between, but we started to notice, like by the time Russ Dizdar and Rob Skiba got hit, and I guess they were at the same event, but I was sent a short video of Russ Dizdar. And Russ Dizdar died on October 17 and Rob Skiba on October 14, and they were supposedly at the same event. But when I got this video, you could actually see him take an energy hit, and then he took another one. And after he took that one, he really didn't stay on the platform and continue. And then he was dead within a few days. But what happened to us, there was a pattern with us. We all got the symptoms at the same times, and as it kept progressing, and then you have no idea. You wake up the morning of the 12th day after the event, which was July 29. You have no oxygen, no voice, no energy, no strength. You're trying to text, you got brain fog. And I texted an interview host who knew how to get a hold of frontline doctors. And that's how it happened. And for frontline doctors to say that they were created so that they could get us ivermectin, I went to 4 different ones and not one of them would get me ivermectin. So the truth, I learned the truth from the ground up. Yeah. And so what happened is, within a month of entering the hospital, August 19, Presley died. The 4 additional ones died. 24 reported experiencing those symptoms that we had. You have lack of oxygen, energy, strength. Talk about a challenge. I remained at home and I survived, but all I could do was crawl. Some days I didn't even have the energy to crawl more than a foot or two. I had no ability to do anything. I had no ability to stand up, and I had to get my balance back once I started getting better. I was in bed for 6 months.
Wow.
But I couldn't even go to any of these funerals, and I couldn't even keep texting these people. But when Prophet Von Clark, I heard that he was at the hospital low on oxygen, I immediately texted him. He didn't respond. I texted his wife, and she didn't respond until much later. And I said, don't sign the digital form. Don't put him in the hospital. Don't, because Presley Stutz was texting us, and he said, I'm a political prisoner. You've got to get me out of here. And it wasn't until, and there's a slide in here that talks about me speaking at Halt Hospital Homicide. That was in 23. So 2 years later, we end up getting the medical records, and there's 4 poisons they used on him. And fentanyl was one, remdesivir was one. Both of those are killers.
Yeah.
They were giving him higher doses than would kill a horse, and of the other 2 poisons. So those 4 were being given to him constantly with no water, no food, tied to the beds. That's why they wouldn't let the families in. And then here's how horrific it was. They would call the families and say, you know what, guys, I know you're worried, and they're getting better. We found that there was progress today. What I'm thinking is you need to get ready, because by tomorrow we should be able to release them. And then they would die overnight. And the family wouldn't know. They would think, oh my gosh, they were so close to coming home, and then they died. So see, there's this whole mental thing that they were doing. The whole thing was a lie. They controlled all of it. And they only got paid for a certain number of days. What they couldn't believe is these were believing people. These were strong voices in America, and they just wouldn't die. So, but they got their whole thing plus a bonus because they died. They got paid for the death of us in the hospitals. And that's why you saw so many doctors and nurses leave. So what happens, it's just like in schools, when the teachers who are doing the truth have to leave, doctors, when they're doing the truth, they have to leave. Military, when they're doing the truth, they have to leave. FBI, when they're doing the truth, they have to leave. You see how the pattern's no different. It's everywhere. But then this is what happened. Von Clark then died, then Rob Skiba, then Russ Dizdar, and then Ronnie Williamson. His wife was sick but didn't die, but then Russ Dizdar's wife died. And then Paul Obel, I was on a lot of his Faith Network and Truth Unveiled TV. I even did live shows with him in his studio in Los Angeles. He's south of Los Angeles in Orange County, between San Diego and LA. And I went to his studio and did interviews with him. And on his birthday, I was talking to him because he had a coupon at an Italian restaurant he introduced me to. You guys, when you go down by, it's going to be close to San Clemente. I'm going to introduce you to this Italian restaurant because of your beloved. It's phenomenal. And so I said, there's a coupon waiting for you, because it was his birthday. He went to his nephew's graduation from a military academy, I believe it was, and got targeted at the event. And his wife got targeted, but not as strong. So she survived. But they told her to do these. Everybody was telling people to do things with hydroxy
Chloroquine?
hydroxychloroquine. And but you know the one you buy that's like 39 cents in the store? She was using that. She wasn't using the organic medical natural one that we're supposed to use medically. And so then it was taking out his kidneys. It was horrible. And he lingered for a long, long time, and they put him on dialysis, and it was horrible. So he died in February of 22. But when he went to that event, I'm talking to him, and then brief calls after that, and then he went down the same path of no energy, no strength, the lack of oxygen. You really can't talk. It was 6 months before I started doing interviews, and I wouldn't do, because I lost all my hair. I'd only do audio, and I would have to force the air over my throat to get words out. I said, I can't do interviews anymore. And people demanded interviews. They said, Sheila, keep talking to us, you know what I mean? It just was like, how do you want to listen to this? You know what I mean? But those interviews are still out there. I keep looking, and they're still out there. They haven't taken them down. But I had to force air out of me just to get a word out. So anyway.
So what how do you think that because I've been to some of these events, and I can trace it back to people shaking my hand. And then I've had direct energy weapons targeting me several for several times for many, many years. Had a helicopter flying and hit me with a heart attack machine. It didn't work on me, but it was pretty, it was like, oh my God, they're like trying to kill me. You know, I served these guys all this time and now they're trying to kill me. What the heck? So, how did you and others, how did they insert it? Because you talked about somebody that like got bam, energy weapon hit him. I've talked to a lot of people like that. Dr. Artis being one of them, and I know you talked to Dr. Artis. He gave you a lot of help as well and insights, as he did me and others. But what what was it? Do you think? How did they target you? And the thing that they hit me with was much more developed than the COVID 19. Way more developed.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was the COVID-19 vaccine ingredients and then the equipment. There were directed energy weapons. They're pretty sure hard hits, and they felt some was by drone, not detected. They felt that some of the radioactive seeds that blossom and release cobra venom were in the iced tea.
Wow.
I mean, it just they're trying to guess, and everybody said, "Well, why didn't right away?" People are like, why didn't Linwood prosecute somebody?" I said, "Prosecute who? How do you know who's doing this? If you didn't
Right.
see, I didn't see any of this happening.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of pictures with people, and people said, "Well, I think that one you took the picture with, look at how she's looking at you." How do I know? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
So
mean,
how
I
do
got
we
hit at
know?
other events. I know
Yeah.
Scott McKay had his own events, and he got hit. His dad died. All of his
Mm-hmm.
security guys, were sick for 6 months, like you're talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
they are very skilled at applying these poisons. They've been doing it for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can explain, and that's in the. I went to Scans Monthly because Scott introduced me to. That's how he introduced me to Juan. And so he sent me a text and he said, "Sheila, the other number on here is Juan's number. He's going to get you with a radiation specialist." And so
Right.
everybody started wanting to go to Sheila's specialist. And I said, "It's not about that. The radiation hit to the brainstem was recognized by Juan first of any. Nobody else recognized it. Then nobody else knew
Wow.
exactly what was going on.
Hmm.
And so when he helped me understand that it was a hit from outside of me, then getting
Mm-hmm.
my hair back wouldn't require anything that I would take. So it was all external hit. So it's an external recovery. And so he helped me with so many things. It was unbelievable. But a lot of this compares with the Havana syndrome that they hit the military with.
Yeah.
And so the international attorney that was doing all the COVID emails and Zoom calls and et cetera, Todd Callender, the same guy that gave me the 45 points. We've been together since all of this started, and really gained a good relationship with each other because he stopped more than I don't know how many thousand military and doctors. He focused on military and medical doctors who were with us, not with the industrial military medical complex, like military complex, and then pilots. He said, if we don't save some of those, this genocide, we aren't going to be able to come through it
Yeah.
because that's what they were focused on and getting us all stopped, not able to get out of our environment, not able to do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but
That's
it's
interesting that you're saying that they didn't target their guys in the military. They targeted the good
yep.
guys.
But
Yeah.
that's what they've always done. The Civil War was all about killing believers. When they
Mm.
killed over 700,000, the guys noticed the pattern because they weren't all in the same battlefields. And people go, well, why wasn't it understood? There are people in the 17 and 1800s who were never more than 2 or 3 miles from their own home their whole life. There were people that went and took a buggy and went off to town and got the food and supplies and etc. The wealthy people probably were able to go to town once in a while. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the regular people, there was no way to get around. And I've told people before, I did a big history thing that hit the news 1907, and I did this in 2007 about, and it was the first racetrack in Lakeside, California. And the racetrack, they tried to make like an oval thing, but they had no steering. And it was like big go-karts. But imagine how exciting it was for the guys that they had something with wheels that didn't require a horse. And they were going around, and then they had to kind of get around the curves because there was no way to steer it because they always went in straight lines. And so that's where we were in 1907. And that's when Teddy Roosevelt was telling us what we need to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
That's when he was president. We don't realize how far advanced we are already compared to where we're going, from here.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't have a way to get this truth around to each other, but now we do. And now we can tell each other. But when we tried to talk about this, then they took more people out at the next event. I mean, it happened at Reawaken all the time.
Wow.
So, but I can explain, it's kind of down in the bottom part, but I can kind of explain physically what I was going through. And I didn't know how some of these things happened until I got to the radiation specialist. So I'm going to give you a combo of both. All I knew was I took a really heavy hit to my right side because I had it checked, and everything happening on me was cancer all the way from my left side of my face all the way down to my left foot. So the hit was so hard. What she said was it pushed the bad cells out because they put the name cancer on it, but they're the ones putting the bad cells in the vaccines. So this is what the specialists knew, is that the vaccines when we were kids had these cells in it. Now do you understand why we have children's hospitals so huge that have kids with cancer? Because they're getting multiple vaccines. In fact, President Trump and RFK Jr. just reduced the vaccines in the first few months of your life or your first year of your life as an infant from 72 to 11. And people go, well, if they're going to reduce it from 72 to 11, why don't they reduce them completely? Well, guys, we're making progress.
Yeah.
We're letting people know. Did you know that your children are getting 72 vaccines in 1 year? And then you're wondering why these children's hospitals, God didn't send children to this earth with cancer. And cancer was created, and it's not cancer, it's bad cells that then cause parasites to go after them. And God's protection of us is wrapping them in a covering that they call a tumor. So then they want to do a biopsy, and they do the biopsy, make a hole in it, and all this bad stuff in you spreads throughout your whole system. And then they go, oh, we're sorry it has spread. They know what they're doing. Do you see what I mean? So what I didn't, they wanted me to go and get everything cut really deep until it was deep enough to think it wouldn't come back. And then they wanted me to drive by myself and drive myself to a plastic surgeon the same day. And they were going to do one thing at a time. I would have been doing it for years because it was everywhere. And so that hit caused protein spike in my lung. And they thought it was, my lungs were filling, but there were so many radioactive seeds. And then what we found out is every time a radioactive seed would blossom, another dose of cobra venom. But we had to work with people in Africa to find out how to deal with that, because
this is the first I've heard of radioactive seeds.
Yes, they're
injected with cobra venom. Wow.
They're little micro seeds, and that's what they felt was in the ice. You really wouldn't. They're microscopic. Do you see what I mean? All of this is done in the lab. Every virus is created in a lab. The Latin term tells you it's a venom, a poison. And 100 years ago, it was the H1N1 virus. So I was already putting all of this in book 6 when all of this was happening. And then all this happened to me. And now I've been talking about it because they've had a pandemic every 20 years in every century. So why do you suppose it was so important for the Pilgrims with 3 tries to still leave in winter? And people never could understand, why didn't they just wait until spring? It was 1620, guys.
Wow.
It would have been another pandemic and taken out their family. You see what I mean?
Wow. Yeah. All of those, I guess they were pandemics all the way back then.
I've got documentation all the way back to the 1320s. I can't find anything in writing in the 1200s, but there really wasn't much in writing in the 1200s about any of these things. Because the people doing this
thought it was the rats, fleas from the rats, but these guys, making these plagues over and over again. I always thought
but they're all
I didn't have the research, I guess, like you did. Good.
And how were the plagues all released in a 20 year? Because in their kingdom, 20 means recycle unto death. Everything about them is death. 19 is power. So this thing had 19 ingredients. They're saying it's the same ingredients as the vaccine. He got the approval on this on January 10 of 2017 because she lost the election. Okay. They were planning on her losing the election. So they couldn't have moved to a total genocide in 2020, which is the ultimate recycle unto death. Okay. They couldn't have done everything they did to us if they didn't hit us from both sides, those who would get the vax and those who refused the vax.
Gosh.
It was
So
a
they
two-pronged.
targeted all of us. Yeah. Even
Mm-hmm,
those of us, as you and I are, disclosing here,
mm-hmm.
they targeted us that, were trying to warn everybody, and how to stay healthy and so forth. Now, chlorine dioxide, when did you start using that? Have you used that in the past?
Not until I was targeted,
Okay, good. That's a good
but I
one. I
started
used to
using it
use that
then.
when I used to travel overseas, and everybody would get sick, and I wouldn't. But that's not a lot of people know about that one.
Mm-hmm.
Vitamin B12, that's interesting. Glutathione, obviously. Um, wow, you're doing the right things.
I used the jet nebulizer morning and night. Sometimes they said do it 3 times a day. Sometimes they said do a larger component to it.
Mm-hmm.
But the budesonide that came from India worked. The one that came from England didn't work. I got sicker. And
Wow.
the Tessalon that keeps you from the heavy duty coughing where you you almost cough your insides out. Um, if I got that from England, it wouldn't work. I had to get that from Kroger, and somehow the one that our pharmacies make didn't do that to me, but the one that came from England, so I couldn't do anything from England. The budesonide had to be the one that comes from India. And they said, well, you're going to have to pay again. I said, I'm going to give it to you and you can give it to somebody else. And they said, well, we really can't do that. I said, give it away. I'm not saying you have to have somebody pay for it. I can't do this. It's not helping me. Because when you can't get your oxygen, many mornings my oxygen was in the 50s, 60s. On a good day, it would be in the 70s. And
Wow.
see, if I would have gone to the hospital, if it's not in the low 90s, upper 80s, they put you on the vent right away. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what they were doing because they knew this was developed to have you lose your ability to have oxygen. And people said, Sheila, nobody thought I was going to live. And they said, with no keeping your oxygen level up, you're going to have to do something else. But I was doing all this stuff. Do you know what I mean? And they said, you're going to have to do something else because you're going to have heavy brain damage. God didn't let that happen, I don't think. So I think
Mm.
I'm okay. But I was doing all this stuff. But in addition to the cancer on the left, I took a kill shot, which is right between my breast. And when I took that kill shot, I ended up with double breast cancer.
Mm.
And I didn't go to doctors about any of this. I did everything natural to come through all of this.
Awesome.
And
Good.
so the vulnerability and then the radiation hit. I lost my voice, lost my hair, and she didn't tell me till October of 23, 24. She didn't tell me until much later. I first went to her January of 22, and she said, oh my gosh, she said, you're 98 years old. And I said, how am I 98? She said, arterial age. She said, the hit is so hard. You're 90. I said, look, I don't want to look 98. I don't want to act 98. What can we do? She didn't tell me till years later, but she kept telling everybody, I can't believe that woman is still alive. Every time she walks in my door, I'm like, woo, walk a miracle. And she told me, hospital or not, you should be dead. And I said, that's not a way to greet somebody. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, why are you telling me that? She said, because you're driving across country and you're so sick. So she finally told me, she said, you need to sit down. So I sat down and she wrote these two numbers on a piece of paper. She said, when you came to see me in January 22, it was 6 months after. So I don't know how bad off you were for those 6 months. But when you came to see me the end of January 22, you were 183 on your left and 108 on your right, and you shouldn't have been
God.
driving, let alone walking, or you shouldn't have even been alive. And that's why I've told everyone, I can't believe you're alive. And I told you, even though they went to the hospital and died, hospital or not, you should be dead.
Mm.
But I didn't know you if you could take it. And I just sat there. I looked at those numbers and I thought, what the heck? Do you know what I mean? But I never thought I wasn't going to get through it. So I come back to Augusta and I told the nutritionist that I have trusted, who's brought me through a lot of this with natural products. And I said, can you believe she would think that I wasn't going to live? And she goes, Sheila, I didn't have the data she had, and I didn't think you were going to live. I was so upset. So my friend who drove me there, because I never drove for 6 months either. I only drove 5 miles in Augusta before I got in a car to help my mom in January. And then coincidentally, Juan set up the appointment 3 days later. So I was in Nebraska January 17 and I was at the appointment on January 20.
Gosh. Well,
And so it all just worked out. But here I am driving across country. Then I had car trouble in Albuquerque. So then I'm renting an SUV because that's all I can get. I mean, then I'm getting to the, specialist, and I'm still that sick. And I had not driven until that time.
Wow.
And then I get there and I meet Juan and he goes, I need you in Plano. So then I'm driving to Plano and I'm in 4 inches of snow when I wake up in the morning and it was 80 degrees the day before. I'm like, I thought this was Albuquerque. This is, you know, this is Plano, Texas. I'm close to Dallas. Why is this happening? You know what I mean?
Goodness.
So
Wow.
it's just, it's what God does. But the arterial sclerosis, the arteries were full of plaque. I
Mm.
could hardly move my when you go to bend your knee, people don't realize if they can't, if everything seems tight in the back of your knee, you need to be taking care of yourself because what she said was the arteries are just everything's just backed up.
Mm.
And she said it happens to people, but this is how you take care of it. And so, guys, we've got to start figuring out how to nutritionally help ourselves. And and then when she was telling me about the radiation and all the things to get it out of me, she was an expert at 3 Mile Island. She's the only one that brought people through. And
Wow.
that's why Juan found her and then
Oh,
referred me to her.
it's amazing. Wow.
That's
Yeah,
how
wine
that
has helped a
happened.
lot of people. Unfortunately, there's some uh like Scott Bennett. He couldn't help Scott Bennett. Scott Bennett, I don't know how he got attacked, but they lit him up, and Juan got him to a specialist in Hawaii, but
Mm.
unfortunately he didn't survive.
Mm. Well, they don't want us to have ivermectin because that cures
Right.
cancer. They don't want us to have fenbendazole. Remember, they had people jumping over like horses, and they said because they're getting it from the pet supply or the tractor supply, is it?
You're right.
And but they were getting ivermectin any way they could. In India, they're handing it out every Sunday so that
Yeah,
people
yeah,
stay healthy.
that's where I was getting mine. I was sending people. There was a very low key. They didn't say where it was coming from, but
Mm-hmm.
there was a pharmacist in India that was working with me and with all my peeps, and I just gave them the address, and I remember they contacted me. They were like, "Thank you so much," but there
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of people got lots of different products from them. Uh, there was that one province in India, they didn't do the vaccination. They gave everybody ivermectin, and they had the best rate of survival of any other
Mm-hmm.
province. All the other provinces that really pushed the vaccination, they had high death numbers.
Mm-hmm. Well, and now it's supposed to be available to get it, but you can't really get it through the corporate ones. So check because it's where they can. It's got a special name to it, where there's a pharmacy where they're different. They're not corporate.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I not thinking of the name of it? But there's a pharmacy that's separate here in Augusta. It's called Barney's. So, but there are pharmacies where you can get the ivermectin now.
Yeah,
Um,
isn't that crazy? I mean, before
it's
COVID, it was
as
like you
part of
could
the
get it for like
genocide.
39 cents, and then you couldn't even get it. And if you could get it, if you could find a pharmacist that would give it to you, it was like hundreds of dollars to get it in the United States. It was
Mm-hmm.
insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a guy that was given that I hooked up with, and he was in the United States, but he was selling for like over $100, for 10-day dose or something like that. A lot of people bought it, but there are now, like you're talking about, ways to get it. There's many people that are, getting it out there, but who knows what the next thing is going to be that
Mm-hmm.
they're going to come after us with.
Well, now here's the funny part, and I think we've talked about it in the interviews, is that it was my friend Beryl, who was her great grandfather was Dr. Samuel Mudd that set the leg of John Wilkes Booth, and
Mm-hmm.
he ended up in the Gulf of Mexico prison. All of those guys in the Knights of Pythias, they got to go back to Europe, and they hung people that didn't matter to them. And
No.
so those guys all got taken care of. But here's the doctor who did this because it's part of his oath. He has to set that leg. And he kept trying to explain it. And then they're in a society, but I don't remember the name. They were all talking that night, but I was focused on setting the leg. And he created the malaria drug because the warden had yellow fever, then his wife got it, then the guards got it, and it was spreading through this Gulf of Mexico prison that they had him in. And because he created the malaria drug, that's the root of HCQ.
Hmm.
What are the chances, that happened and then this happens? You know what I mean? It's just because we wouldn't have had it. Um, we wouldn't have had chloroquine to get through all of this stuff. So, but here I was, March. This is March of 22. So 2 months after the specialist appointment, and I had just gotten back to Georgia in time to go to the election integrity meeting in South Carolina, and it's in Charleston where the World Order is in America.
Yeah.
And there was Laura Logan, and I had just been on LT's interview. I was his first ever because we shared intel about 5 years before. And then he had her on the same in March also. And I just wanted to shake her hand and thank her for her interview. And she heard my voice flipped around and said, "You're Sheila Holm. I got thousands of questions. I want all your books. I'm going to take you to dinner tonight. Would that be okay?" I'm like, "Oh my God, you're Laura Logan. Would that be okay if you take me to dinner?" So then she ran up to the stage. So we're up on the stage at this point, and there's a whole bunch of pictures security took. I was laughing the whole time because it's like, you want a picture of me with black paint on my head? I had a few straggler pieces of hair. I had just been to my special salon in San Diego, and he cut a real short cut so that it could look like I had more hair. And he said, "We're going to make you trendy." And so he did it. And that's thank God he did that before I met Laura Logan. But the majority of what you see is black paint on my scalp,
Wow.
spray paint.
That looks good. They did a good job.
Yeah, and she's amazing. She's just amazing that you never get over something like that night. And then in April, I was back out at the specialist, and she had a guy that does blood work. And I said, "Well, I got where this cobra venom is leaking, and it seems like there's other stuff too. Do you think you could check it?" And he said, "I don't have time to do this, but if you can go in the bathroom and take this slide," and he showed me what to do. And he said, "Just put the slide in, and then I'll study the slide and see what we've got going on." And I believe the mercury is the heavier filled in one, and that copper is the other one. But he wouldn't tell me. He gave it back to the specialist Juan introduced me to, and he said, I don't want to be the one to tell her what's going on.
Oh,
But
no.
what I have is a lethal level of mercury and a lethal level of copper. And he found, you see where they're attaching and they're combined. I don't know how to understand this stuff either, but he said that the crazy part is the mercury should have killed her, the copper should have killed her before the venom.
Hmm.
But with cobra venom, it makes trails in your system. So now she's taking pictures to keep, because when she talked to the people in Africa, because she goes, "We need to get you to a plastic surgeon and we'll get it to stop leaking and we'll just clean it all up." I said, "I don't want it to be cute. I want it to be, if I got stuff in me that has to come out, I'm okay if this darn thing leaks. But they said it could go 10 years. It's still leaking now. And then I got a horrible hit on my back that I can't get to. So I just keep it activated and then pull it out the front with the creams that I'm using, that actually pull these bad cells out of us. And
Yeah.
so I'm keeping it leaking so that I can pull what I can from the back too. Because if the cobra venom, and then we found out if the cobra venom gets closed up and it still has active in me, it'll go into the liver, become a manufacturing process, and that'll take you out because people don't live through cobra venom. But
Wow.
when it moves through you, it creates a trail. So she has pictures of all the different, every time I go, there's more trails for her to take pictures of.
Oh my God.
So,
That's amazing. Jeez. You are definitely protected by God.
and then because I was living, the very next month I was back, and Juan came to the appointment and found out all of this. And that's how we found the patent, because I already we knew some of the ingredients. She knew some of the things going on. She was on the team that created Fenben Bio that also takes out cancer. They held it for 5 years, and they never got their bonuses. They held it for 5 years, and just like ivermectin, they take the cancer cures and put them over on Penn Med on the veterinary side, because then it's illegal for a physician on the human side to even recommend it. They can be arrested.
Mm.
So that's what they've taken, both products, and put it on and so the one who gets the best ivermectin in an injection is pigs.
Wow.
Imagine. I mean, this is how weird this is of what we're living through. So
Mm.
anyway, found his patent, and then this guy Greg Rubini, amazing investigative reporter, and we got connected and we were sharing things back and forth. And he was talking about Fauci. And just like Derek Johnson was when we were on the military panel the other night,
Mm-hmm.
um, he was mentioning it, but he was talking generically, and it wasn't a generic thing. It was, here we are going through all of this, and it's exacting. On January 10, he gets a U.S. patent approved. He gets 6 grants in his pocket. The government holds a percent interest against us, which is against our Constitution. And so, since he was researching this and said, look what Fauci said to our president on January 11, he was at Georgetown and it became a famous speech. I never heard the speech, don't want to hear the speech. But he said that because he knew what they were doing. So they got the approval of the patent, created it in biolabs here in America to use against us to take us out.
Wow. He said it the next day that they get the patent. That's crazy.
Yep. No
Wow.
doubt Donald J. Trump will be confronted. Didn't call him president. Do you see that? With a surprise. A couple of people quoted him saying a highly infectious disease with a surprise disease outbreak during his presidency.
Hmm.
It was all planned for 2020.
Yeah.
20 every century in the 20 year, there's always a kill the people pandemic.
Hmm.
The depopulation is not new.
Amazing.
So then that's why I repeated, if we would have known
Yep.
that they wanted to take us out. But our money is used to take us out.
Yeah, our own money.
While they're paying all this money to all these illegal people. I mean, it's just everything is so upside down because they've always replaced. They used identity theft to take over rulership of all the nations. Just like we already talked about, our presidents weren't even qualified to run for president because they were using fake names that aren't even their birth names and come into this country with no documentation or any history or background to let us vet you and know who you are. And then all of a sudden you're president, and then your son's president, and then you want your other son to be president. I mean, Jeb ran that year too when Trump ran. So here we are, guys. Upside down world. And then this is just a picture of the top. So you can see I didn't make anything up. That's a patent. That's the number. This is our government doing this. And the government has certain rights in this invention. What rights do they want to take us out? What's it worth to them? These are the ingredients. So you can see there's 19, but some have other parameters in it. And that's where you get the cobra and then the neurotoxins. And then just for fun, they added HIV and Lyme. And did you know, Dr. Judy Mikovits cleared this up. I don't know if you've interviewed her, but the root of Lyme is the same root as HIV. And it was all created in a lab. Now think back, why did President Trump say, these are my friends? I want you to hear from them. Did you guys know that these were the experts on HIV? But see, Americans didn't know yet that HIV was done to us also.
Oh, yeah.
None of this is from a monkey or a bat or this is all done in a lab. All of it. And 100 years ago, it was the H1N1 virus. And how many HN viruses have we been told about in the last 100 years? It was not from Spain and it was not the flu. But let's get you a flu vaccine. And now it's a super vaccine and it includes COVID. And did you know that I'm still seeing people stand in line to get it? And they're making appointments even at the grocery store and the pharmacy to get it.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand is they're making money getting you to get it. They're getting paid according to how many people they can get to get the vaccines.
Great.
We've got to wake up. And then this was the very night that the Georgia Guidestones went down. David and Stacy had me on, and I was about 5 months after this is about 5 months after my exam, because I was at the end of January with her. And that's the short, trendy style that they gave me in San Diego. And then he passed. They hit him, and he passed August of 22. And he's a good 20, 25 years younger than me. And he couldn't, he collapsed at his salon. He'd had problems, and then on a Saturday he collapsed at the salon. But that's when the Georgia Guidestones came down, and this is the video that our friend Juan had shared. And at 403.30, you can see it's taking off. And 403.32, these are the screenshots I could get. It's almost there. And at 403.33, these guys did such perfection, because 4 means to obliterate their structure, because 4 is structure to them, ours is 12. And 333 is a third of the angels that fell from heaven. So they scattered them onto the 4 corners of the earth. And that's what's in scripture. The 4 corners of the earth kind of represents a flat earth. And you'll see a flat earth behind the flyover conservatives. And people have wanted me to really fight for flat earth during this war. And I said, you guys, we're at such deep war that we don't have to climb the hill about flat earth right now, because people have believed it for centuries. And so I don't have to convert people over to flat earth right now. But we're not spinning at hundreds of miles an hour. There's no band-aids around us to keep us all hooked onto the. So anyway, so that's what happened. That's why they took Rob Skiba out. And then Judy Mikovits is a Cherokee. Scott McKay's a Cherokee. So she started representing my books and then started doing interviews. Never told me that she was a Cherokee. And people had me listening to her interviews. And she goes, Sheila Holm knows I'm a Cherokee. I'm the 9th son, Issachar, of the tribe of Israel. And did you guys know that the Iroquois are that too? It's just really funny, because both tribes are extremely brilliant. All of the sons of Israel, Jacob, Israel, all have different characteristics, and they all have different names for different purposes, because they knew from the father how to name them. And the Cherokee and the Iroquois are way up top. The military still uses them as ghosts at the bases. And when they're born on the base, they're pretty much on base the rest of their life. If they want to get out, they have to become a shaman for their own tribe, but still stay available to the base. But a ghost is, this, like our ghost unit, they would send them out as a ghost. They would show who to kill. These guys would know with the assistance of the father, because if they didn't come back, and they because these guys know what happened to them, and they did the kill, but they don't come back, then they kill the family. So that's a threat upon them. And so it's just been a really amazing journey on how all of this, I've been connected with people with all of this truth to now put all of these connecting dots together, because of what's happened to me is just unbelievable.
Mm.
And then this is speaking at Holt Hospital homicide, and that's where they already have all of the evidence. This was March of 23, and they have the evidence of all the poisons they used to kill our family members in the hospital. It was homicide. They committed the homicide. They did all of this with the intention to murder them, because they knew the strength of these poisons and what it would do to them. And that's why they were bringing so much fentanyl into the country. And 98 point something were all fathers of a family.
Mm.
The targeting was pretty specific. Same thing as the Civil War. Kill the fathers of the family. Then the women and children will be available for you to take advantage of. But everything has departed from God's plan. And that's why the president said, can we all pray? So just like we said about Nineveh in Assyria, if you will pray and repent and call upon the Lord to heal, divine intervention is what we need. Because divine intervention because we could take decades finding out who's really telling us the truth. Because if the big diplomats and the big rulers and the big leaders and all of those things, they're all involved in, because it's satanic worship that Epstein was in. So if you take everybody, because remember when the guys were in the swimming pool? I think everybody has seen that picture where Bill Clinton and a bunch of other guys are all in a swimming pool and someone's taking the picture, and they never knew who took the picture. It was Epstein. Epstein has documented all of this. The logs from Epstein are something to behold. And it's just like, I'm just getting messages now. Do you remember Scotty Martin, the videos that he was doing on Twitter? And he put them out on Rumble, and he was going over the Q posts and the tweets of the day and putting the messages together with a rock and roll song.
Yep.
Okay, Scotty Martin supposedly just had a heart attack, and is gone. But I was working with him back in 22-3, and he was giving me names of guys and are guys that were in the SEAL teams, etc. That and you and I can say this right up front. We never talked about this ahead of time. Um, so this is all new, and you may or may not have heard about this. But Scotty, back in 22, his like one of his first films, maybe 21, 22, one of his first ones that he shared had SEAL Team 6 guys. And you see the picture of the SEAL team, and it's only one guy, and all the other faces are blacked out. And then you take it through the story of who this guy was. And he said, but I don't know my name. I don't know who I am because they wiped out my memory. So if anyone knows, anyone can identify. And Scotty had all of this information to share. So I started doing, I just love research. So I started doing a research, and all sorts of people sent in pictures of him in high school, et cetera, et cetera. And we found the name because all the dimples, all the marks, everything was a match. Awesome. So we knew we had the right guy. So this was right around the beginning of June, because it was in June, the week before Lewis Herm's Truth Tour in San Diego, because I had been down in Florida, then came back to Augusta. Then, because I was there, they invited me to Doug Billings in June. So I go to Doug Billings in Branson, Missouri to go back to Augusta. But when I go to Doug Billings, I had just put this whole picture together on Aaron Vaughn. So when I go to check into the hotel, God said, they're going to talk to you. And so I'm turning my face like this. I've been driving for 3 days. I look like heck. I don't want people to recognize me. I'm just going to check in and load my luggage and finally sleep for a couple hours. And so I'm like this. And somebody asked a question, and I was trying to whisper. And they said, I think you're Sheila Holm. And they heard my voice, right? I go, yeah, I'm Sheila Holm. And so God said, I did this because they were going to go to Office Depot and get ready for the event and make stuff. And God said, I did this for you because when you go through the threshold of this door, when you've signed in, I want you to close the door, and I want you to ask them if they know the family of Vaughn. I thought, wow, how would they? One said she was from Minneapolis, the other one's from Milwaukee. I don't know. So I get checked in. I go to walk over the threshold, and I say, just a second. I said, we got to close the door. And they said, why? And I said, because God said I'm supposed to ask you, do you guys know anybody that has a son in the military and their last name is Vaughn? And they go, yeah, we do. I said, both of you know the family? And they go, yeah, we do. And I said, and the son's name is, and we all said Aaron at the same time. So I go and tell Scotty. They go and tell the parents. The mom's been trying to find the son. All the word gets out about me, and I've got this whole list of families that have been writing to me. My son was a secret soldier. My son was a super soldier. My son was in a SEAL team. We heard there's a death. We don't have a death certificate. We don't have a body. They're not giving us anything.
Yeah.
Guess what just came out in the last few days? Aaron Vaughn has evidently been protected since Benghazi. He knows all the background of Hillary and Obama and the gun running and everything. And if his family found out, because Scotty told me, he said, I think the mom signed in this morning, and I think she's wanting to connect. And that's all he said, because he's doing what he's doing because he's got info. I mean, every one of his videos is like, whoa, and so quick. The information of the day, matching it to the Q stuff, get it all together, and it's like, whoa. So a lot of times that's all I was looking at. And for him to do this and never say a word, and now Juan said, Scotty, I'll see you in Valhalla. And then Juan called me and said, when you talk to Mrs. Scotty, let her know. I'm like, whoa. And so, because remember, Cash said, Charlie, I'll see you in Valhalla.
Right.
And Juan was saying, Scotty, we'll see you in Valhalla. So that happens, and it's just days. And now Aaron Vaughn, and we're in 26. You know what I mean? But that was happening, wasn't it 2014? Wasn't Benghazi 2014?
Sounds about right, yeah.
So anyway, so here we are way out here. And now the possibility of these guys, of it being at a point where they can come forward and get reunited with their families and have a real life again. Now, whether they've been able to connect with their families and because I think they want to protect their families too, but the sacrifice and the commitment to be whistleblowers that would go through all of that, just like Edward Snowden, I think that the whole thing of taking our brilliant people who fight like you did in SEAL team, and then you do this with them and you wipe out their memory so they have no way of going back to anything in their life. And Scotty would only know that. I don't know if he has military background. All I knew is he's in Texas. And when I did the last eclipse, he went to Kerrville, Texas and took pictures of the Kerrville crossfire. And he and his wife made a weekend of it. And so, but we had been communicating by email and everything and by direct message on Twitter. But boom, what are the chances? Because now the people who knew the truth are starting to share it out on Twitter and say, you're going to see what these guys have done. And Aaron's going to be able to tell us exactly what happened at Benghazi and blah, 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 blah. And all of that's just surfacing now in the last few days.
Amazing. Yeah, we need more of that. And yeah, I've been contacted over the years with people that supposedly had died. There was questionable that they never got the bodies like you're talking about. And they said that they had heard from them. That's all they could tell me. But
that's all they could tell because they can't let it.
Right.
How hard on the family. Did you ever see this crazy film? Do you guys like films? Did you ever see Tom Cruise and I think it's KNIGHT and Day, Night and Day? I think that's the name of the movie. And he was CIA. And then because he was trying to protect something that the other side of the other kingdom wanted to use, then they were taking him out and he had to survive himself. And did you see this? There was a bullfight and it's funny. It's with Cameron Diaz. You would love this film because it's humor.
I think I've seen it, but I can't quite replace everything yet.
Okay, so she's going to her sister's wedding. He puts this product in her luggage because they're going to check him and not her. Then they follow him to find out he wants to go get that piece of whatever he put in her luggage. You don't know how all this is happening. And she wants nothing to do with him. She doesn't know why he's trying to do it. She's just trying to get to her sister's wedding. Do you know what I mean? And so it's piles of stories on top of each other. And there's so much humor in it, but it's kills in the CIA. And he was an agent and he's trying to tell her and he's trying to gain her trust. And she's like, I'm not going to do that with you. I'm going to leave on my own right now. And he kept doing this thing with me, without me, with me, without me. And then the whole thing flips where in the end, she really finds out he is CIA. She saw what they tried to kill him. She finds out through this whole process where his parents live. She goes and visits him, finds out that he was this major kid who could hold his breath that long because she thought for sure he was killed. And she finds out everything he told her was the truth. So then she goes back, finds out they've got him in a hospital, goes in a hospital outfit, pushes him in a gurney, gets him out of the hospital. And then he goes, so what are we going to do? And she's going to get him away to his family until all this can be resolved. So he said, so I don't know if I can trust that you. And she goes, with me or without me? You're with me?
I remember. Yeah. That
or you want to do this without me? Because he's been in the hospital and he was all tied up to machines and everything. She just unplugged him and got him out and saved his life. But he saved her life. Do you see what I mean? But there's the running of the bulls. I mean, and then there's the Spanish mafia kind of guys, and they're doing shoot up and everything. And so she's going, well, I don't think you really like me. And he leans around the posts and he has to kill 2 people. And he comes back and he goes, of course, I'm telling you, I love you. And she goes, well, I don't think that's true. And he goes around, and he kills 2 more people. I mean, it's just, and then it's a active film that's so unusual. And I'll look and see if I've got an extra one. I'll send it to you guys. I love the DVD. It's on DVD. I just love it. And it's one you're going to want to see. And sometimes you want to back it up and go, didn't that guy just say, you know what I mean? It's that intense, that fast. It's the producer of his films and the Tom Clancy films that wants to do my film.
Oh, wow.
And our friend, did you know? No, it was a personal friend of Tom Clancy. So I asked him if he knew the producer, and he said, I don't know if I know the producer. You know, when he goes, I don't know. Because he knows, do you know what I mean? He knows if he knows. Right. I don't know if I know the producer. So,
yeah.
But he's in Georgia, and I thought, when would I ever be in Georgia? And now it's just timing. Yeah. Because it was all going to get resolved, and then COVID.
Juan and I both think that Tom Clancy was taken out, too.
It was the night I met the producer.
Really?
I was in line at his business, and he kind of guessed because there's a famous guy that he knows that I met to help in Wisconsin back in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were talking about it. And in 2013, in April, the guy called me and he goes, "Look, I got the producer interested in your story. And now that you win a film festival with your script, he knows you already have a script. It's going to be easy. All you got to do is meet with him." And I said, "Well, where is this guy?" And he goes, "He's in Georgia." And I go, "When am I ever going to be in Georgia?" That was April. And at the day the government shut down, the end of September going into October,
Mm-hmm.
I'm flying to Georgia. And
Wow.
so I end up, and the people who were going to meet me for Macon weren't available. So the woman in Columbia picks me up, drives me to where this guy is in Georgia so that the Macon guy can meet me like a halfway point. And that's where this guy's business is. What are the chances? So I'm standing in line to meet with him. And as soon as I get up to him, he goes, "I think you are Joe's friend." I said, "Yes, sir." "You were meeting with Tom Cruise and Ben Affleck and Morgan Freeman the day that he had the meeting with you about my script?" And he goes, "Yes." And he said, "I really want to get in this with you, but," he said, "I can't get into it enough tonight. Can you come back at 10 tomorrow morning?" I said, "Sure, sir, I'll do that." At that exact time that I shook his hand and he knew who I was, is the exact moment they said that Clancy was gone. So the
Wow.
next morning he was late for the meeting, and I said, "Sir, I absolutely understand." He said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I heard when I got back to the hotel that Clancy, I hope our guys have him." And he said, "There's a potential, but I've been on so many radio and TV shows this morning, I just don't know."
Oh man, I hope that's right. I have a feeling that that could be right too. That they basically he went to Valhalla. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And I hope he is there.
yeah,
So
definitely. So this is interesting here. You put it medical departed from God's will and plan. We all know that. Legal also departed from God's will and plan. Yes, absolutely. Financial also departed from God's good God. Yes, absolutely. So
and I ran out of room, but it's military, they everything.
yeah,
Government departments, government bureaus, government agencies, they all departed, and that's why they took the Bible and the prayer out of the schools.
yeah. And this is the perfect one to end with. I think this is a great story. Uh, you told it a couple times, but I didn't see all the words, so this is really cool. So read this one. This is amazing. And tell us about this one.
Well, this was the second time. I was there in 22 at Cape Cod, and then I said, "You guys are only 30 minutes from Faith Monument." So I went and gave a tour. And Juan said, "Wow," he said, "how you've known all of this all these years." He said, "How many times have you been here?" And I said, "Sir, it's my first time here." He goes, "You've never had your boots on ground at the Faith Monument and you put it in all your books?" And I said, "Yes." And so he goes, "Guys, can you believe that? She's never even been here before." So this is the second year, and I wasn't going to go. And then this whole miraculous thing happened because it's six hotel nights, it's a lot of miles, it's just very expensive. And God said, "You got to go." And then everything just started to fall into place. So I end up going, and it's the first time that this grandmother came with this little 4-year-old that you see. His name is Grayson. And so when I got to the event, I was unloading the books out of the trunk of the car, putting them on the table, and Grayson just followed me like a little puppy dog, like a shadow. And I had to turn around and back up sometimes because I didn't know if I was going to turn with a bunch of books and hit him, or, you know what I mean? Because he was so little. And so I'm doing all of this, and he just, every time I look at him, he just looks up at me and just beams. So and grandma said he loved to pray. So I was just getting ready to speak. This is at the event, not at the Faith Monument. And I said, "I'm going to be speaking a little bit. And your grandma says you love to play. You want to pray with me?" And he goes, "No." And he runs away. And so then I asked him again, and she asked him same. And I asked him again. I said, "You don't want to pray with me?" And he goes, "No." And he ran away again. So that night, when grandma laid him down to rest that night, she said, "You pray with so many people, and you followed that woman all over all day. And then at the end of the day, when she's going to speak, you don't want to pray with her." And he goes, "Grandma, she was the one that didn't need the prayer." And she goes, "What?" And she goes, "Didn't you see all those bright white angels? There were angels all around her, Grandma. Didn't you see it? It was so bright." And that's what I was watching. And when she would move, they would just move all around her. "Did you not see all of it?"
Uh-huh.
And she's like, "No, I didn't see that." And so the next day, when we're done, they're getting ready to take everything apart, and because they brought a microphone and everything, because it wouldn't happen the first year when I did the tour, nobody recorded it. And so they had it all recorded, and God said, I want you to take the mic and I want you to hand it to him. He needs to give the people the testimony that he gave his grandmother. So I go find him and I find grandma, and I said, I hope this is okay with you because God wants you to give the testimony. And if you see all those cars, there's never any car. It's in a cul-de-sac and it's got a little road that goes around it, but there's never anybody there.
Mm.
It's in, they call it the National Monument to the Forefathers. It's not what it is. You see faith on the top pointing up to heaven. We've already talked about this, I think, in
Yep.
other interviews. It's a faith monument, and the four pillars, how to raise a child so they know how to go when they're older, they don't forget. And Liberty Man is over on this side, has already conquered England. The bear or the lion of England is got his paw on his shoulder, already skinned. He's sitting on the head of it. Do you know what I mean? He's got an hourglass or eyeglass, whatever the pirates use when you're looking out over the ocean. I don't know ocean stuff like you do, but that glass you use and you see out on the horizon to watch and make sure that tyranny never comes into this country. That was what the morality, education, law, and liberty. Those, if you understand those four principles, all based on the Bible and Ten Commandments, everyone would live in peace and liberty and retain freedom. That's why they had a 500-year plan that didn't make it quite to the Civil War. So
Mm.
this little boy didn't know anybody, 4 years old, 4 years and 4 days old at the time that this was done. And when I told him, he said, did God say the testimonies for us, meaning the people? Because see, there were a whole bunch of people walking in and being added. There were people all around the monument when we were praying. And so he said, did God say it's okay if they hear it? And because such discernment, from a little 4-year-old. And I said, he said, give you the microphone. So I think it's for everybody. So he said, okay. So he took it and he gave the testimony as to what happened about the angels and everything else. And then all of a sudden he goes into this little sermonette and says, Jesus handled Satan. We just have to kick Satan's butt. So please start kicking Satan's butt. In the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, amen. And hands me back the microphone and runs off to play. And grandma's looking at me. I'm looking at grandma. I'm looking at Juan. And we're all just like, what just happened? Do you know what I mean? From a 4-year-old. You just got
Wow.
to kick Satan's butt.
That's amazing. That's
That's
beautiful.
the difference. The what?
I said, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. That was miraculous. That year was just everything about that visit was miraculous. And then when he got home, his mom in drugs ended up crossing the state line into Arkansas, and Sheila spent the next 6 months getting him back to grandma's house and getting her out of drugs and getting her through rehab and getting her a job back in Missouri. And now she can't cross the state line. And I can honestly tell you, I got all of this done in 24. They survived through 25, and the mom still has the same job. We got her to get her back to Missouri. They're all living together. They're happy as anything. He is called Honest Abe at school because he won't say anything but the truth, according to the teachers. And he's now just turning. He's going to be turning 6 years old this year. I mean, it's only been this short time, but all that happened. And if Sarah Huckabee Sanders had not become the governor of Arkansas, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. When I taught at a veterans event in October of 22 to 23, to then that guy that had that veterans event in a complete deluge of rain and got everybody out of the mud that was stuck. I mean, it was that bad. I
Mm.
mean, coming through the tent and onto the microphones, I mean, it was crazy. That guy went to high school with Sarah Huckabee Sanders and had her cell phone number. So when I called him and I said, you know what, we got a boy in trouble. He crossed a 4-lane highway thinking it was grandma's house across the street, got through a locked cattle gate because his mom's being beaten up by drug dealers. Can you help me? And
Mm.
he said, yeah, I got the cell phone number of Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. And so when people ask about my life, they go, how did that happen? I said, God has it all dovetailed and done up. This kid at 4 is crossing a 4-lane highway because it looks like grandma's house. And when he gets over there, he doesn't even know he's in Arkansas. He said, I'm not in Missouri. I thought my grandma maybe was next door to you because it looked exactly like, so I just need to get across this highway
Gosh.
in the cold after he gets out of a locked cattle gate somehow. I mean, even little calves can't get out. I don't, this is an unusual, amazing young man
Mm-hmm.
who has not given up, not quit, and he looks just as happy today. I could send you guys a picture if you want to
Yeah,
make it
definitely.
available under the interview of him now at 5.5. He'll be 6 in July.
Yeah, very good.
Just a powerful young man.
Beautiful. Wow. Well, that was a great story. About what happened with you and the great slide presentation. So we got to see it in detail. You know, quite a tragic time, and we've come out of that. It seems like we're moving into more and more victory going forward. But we just have to keep our eye on different things like that and not let them affect us again. And gosh, what a crazy time that was.
And look at how much we've learned. We are
Mm-hmm.
just, and if we will pray, and that's all we're asked to do, because either we trust that there is a Lord over all and all the other gods are dead, even if we trust that we're living with a living Lord and all the other gods are dead and all they want to do is kill people, and especially little children.
Mm.
I mean, they're having children who are still little children having children underground who have never seen sunlight,
Right.
and they're creating them to use their blood for adrenochrome and sacrifice them to have a better life. It's just to put our minds around it. But Jeffrey Epstein was into that.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was going to say is it's kind of a sandwich day, is because Jeffrey Epstein documented all the things that these horrific people do. But he was raised that way too. So he may not have known any different until after all of it. You know what I mean? Because you don't know the truth until you come to truth. And God told me, Sheila, if it takes 1,000 people to tell someone the truth until they get it and know that I'm truth, you could be number 575. You could even be 999, and you'll never know that they get the truth in them so that they can make a different choice.
Yeah.
So if Epstein was logging all of it at that end, and then we had this guy just volunteering in a computer way, what a brilliant mind this guy must have had. I never met him in person, but what a brilliant mind to put that software together, to create the security software, to sell the contract to the government, and without their knowledge, because this guy is not a satanic ritual abuse. He's not. He's the other end of where Epstein was raised. But operating in integrity, operating in truth, can you imagine what he realized what he was capturing? And he's got it all. And that's why when Trump says we've got it all, we caught them all, every government computer is on McAfee.
Yeah.
He had everything. Can you just, so if you look at what this guy has, and this painting, I don't know if you can see it as well as the light shining on it enough. That cigarette is lit. That's why I bought this. It was at Cape Cod in the first trip in 22, and Juan brought two of these, and the hostess bought the other one. And I took one look at it, and he said, "If anyone wants this," my hand went up. I mean, I didn't even know how I was going to pay for it. My hand went up, and he goes, what are you saying?" And I said, "I have to have that. You're trolling the entire government." And he said, "I know. Jen painted this, and you're trolling the whole government." I said, "I got to have it."
Oh,
They have
okay.
little
That
ones too. But he only had two paintings, and so I got this one. He autographed the back of it. I think Jen
oh,
autographed it too,
oh, good.
because she's the artist on all this.
Very cool.
We got McAfee and we got Epstein. And sometimes your enemy, if you love your enemies, because remember President Trump said, and the first time I saw it was like, that's hard. He goes, "I'm learning how to love my haters." Oh, that's a deep step,
Yeah.
because it has bothered me that these people think so much of themselves that they want to keep doing it, because the stuff that's happened to me just never seems to stop, as the FBI, and it's, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
what an unusual life. Why? I mean, I'm not, but that's what they've said. I'm still here because I'm not that important to them. I'm not of an influence level that they need to really bother with me or waste their time on me, or I forget. That's kind of the wording of what he was saying. In who you are, it's kind of a waste of time.
Well, they
That
tried to
just
take you out and you survived, so they're like,
mhm.
she's on a different level, so we better not mess with her. Because a lot
Oh,
of
is that
times
what
the
it
people
is?
that mess with
Wow.
us,
Yeah.
they end up it gets boomeranged on them. So I know that for a fact. So that's why I think we have continued forward because we've been attacked. They've given it their best, and we survived. And they probably sent some other people after us, and there was some boomerang action that happened with some of that. I've heard from the people that does happen. So they
Well,
once they know that, they don't mess around with us anymore.
hmm have you do you have my Nation Restoration book? All right, I need to send you one. It's kind of a turquoise and it's got a globe on the front, putting the pieces back together. Does that
Uh,
sound familiar?
yep.
Okay, that has the history and the numbers and everything else. But there's a little story in there, and that's the only place I've ever told this. There was a horrific guy that I met, and I was helping some widows, and one of them I was staying with because she had an extra room. Her husband had just died, and they hadn't had guests or anything, and so she had an extra room. So she was over in their room, and I had a room, and so I had a few things in the room, everything else was in storage. And so I met this guy. Within 7 days, this guy did everything he could to destroy my life. It's a very short story, and I'm not going to drag this out. Very short story. His name was Stephen Norris, and he spelled it exactly the same way as a Stephen Norris, who's an attorney up in the Valley, Fresno. I couldn't think of the valley name, but Fresno up above Los Angeles and a little east. And so that attorney was hearing about people that this man had destroyed after he destroyed them, but this guy had nothing to do with destroying them. So they could never find out how to get a hold of this guy after he destroyed them. So I'm doing all this research on this guy. In 7 days, he has the police come and have me removed from this place with this widow while she was visiting her sister and said I had no right to be there and he wasn't connected at all. I had 10 minutes to pick up whatever I wanted. Couldn't have my computer because that might not belong to me. Couldn't have my printer because that doesn't belong, might not belong to me. Anything that might not belong to me, you can put a few clothes in a suitcase and go. You got 10 minutes. I'm like, what the heck? What is happening? So there's an RN that was helping me at the time because the widow had some issues and she was a good friend as an RN. And the woman didn't have a lot of money to keep figuring out what was wrong with her. So my RN friend was helping her. So he found out that her car was sometimes there. And so he listed her too and filed cases against me as though I'm destroying this widow's life. And he filed a case against me for defamation because I was telling people he wasn't a real attorney. He had no idea. I'd already talked to the paralegal of the real attorney with that name, and it's not him. But the judge that allowed the cases against me is the judge that was a presiding judge at the time that I got the other judges sentenced to federal prison on RICO charges.
Ooh.
Do you see what I mean? So that judge allowed it. And when I tried to clear it up, he never would let me clear it up. You see? So I was so furious. And I finally got the DA ready with enough documented evidence and talking to the attorney in Fresno. They're going to arrest him. They go to arrest him and find out they said that the guy was dead. And I said he faked his death. The guy's bad. He faked his death. And they go, no, you need to talk to the doctor. Well, the doctor wouldn't talk to me. And I couldn't believe that this happened. Now, here's God's sense of humor. 7 days, he destroyed me in 7 days, had me out the night of the seventh day. My RN friend said, anyone who does this, they need to die the worst death. I said, sweetheart, death is death. You know, and I'm going on and just, I said, I got to go on with my life and I'm doing other stuff. And she goes, no, there is a worse death. I said, what? There's a worse death. I couldn't imagine. And she said, when people do these kind of things, like what he just did to you, she said they end up coming to the hospital because they can no longer speak. All they're doing is contorting. We see them all over, and they've got so much energy. They're up and down. We have to tie them down. We have to medicate them down, and still they're in contortions, and they can never speak until they're dead. I said, what? Come to find out, the day he was supposed to be in court, and that's when he didn't show up, and the DA decided they're going after him. When he didn't show up in court, because God said file counterclaims, so I did, and that was the day he was supposed to meet me in court, and he didn't show up. That's the day he ended up in the hospital. Exactly 7 days later, the guy is dead. Exactly 30 days after he meets me, the guy is dead. 7 days he destroys me. There's what, 22 days, 23 days in between. He dies in 30 days. 7 days he destroys me. 7 days he experiences the worst death possible. So, guys, but sometimes you never know this. I've heard things have happened to people, and then people go, "Do you put a curse on people?" I don't even let anything come out of my mouth. It kind of sounds like a
No,
curse.
no, I
But
never
if
do
you
either.
do these kind of things, and so we don't have to, everyone has to know, well, when are we going to deal with all these people? If we keep praying, we can get divine intervention, just like the Father protected the tribes of Israel. And we can get that protection,
Mm.
and they'll get taken care of.
Good
Sodom and
point.
Gomorrah was in one night. The two son-in-laws knew the angels were there, and they wouldn't tell anybody who they were. And the two son-in-laws knew they couldn't say who the angels were or identify them, but they were so huge, and everybody wanted to know, who are these creatures with you guys, because they look so different. They wouldn't leave the pub, and they knew the time was up. And it was only Lot and his daughters, and the wife doubted and turned around. In one night, everything else was gone.
Right.
So we've got real potential. Having a president who said, I'm calling you to prayer. He's made a call to prayer, just like Jonah told the king of Assyria. You've got to repent and pray and fast and seek the Lord, because the way you're treating these people is completely wrong. And everybody thinks that Jonah was this fantastic guy and had all this wisdom, and he went and turned a whole nation around in 40 days. That's not what happened. And then Nahum, God gave him 100 years, and in 100 years they wouldn't clean it up.
Hmm.
What's happened to us in the last 100 years? They wouldn't clean it up. They've never cleaned up the lies. They've never cleaned up the stories. It wasn't from Spain. It wasn't a flu. They never had the right to depopulate us. They had never have had the right to kill all these believers. They're living a lie, and they've never paid the consequences. But our prayer is for everybody, because they can find out the truth and not be blown off the planet or into the planet or whatever's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not even trying to guess, but they can be gone in a night. And
Yep.
that's because the powers and principalities that are in them, we keep thinking that's an evil person. Sheila, is this one as evil as this one? Guys, it's not about that. It's what's in them. Remember how Jaco just says what's in you?
Mm-hmm.
And it's either evil or it's for righteousness. Choose. It's either life or death. Choose. It's that, like Jacob said, it's God keeps it so simple. There is nothing complex about this. All of this division, all of these stories, all of these lies. Don't believe that because it's the truth. Don't believe these true speakers because they're truthful. Don't, and we got to kill them because these guys are having influences. John F. Kennedy, our president, Aldous Huxley, Brave New World, telling the world, C.S. Lewis, telling believers, all three taken out on 1122, which is a 3-3 for them, in 63, which is a 9, which is 3-3. Guys, they know what they're doing, and they've done it on purpose. Are we going to say, okay, I'm going to stand and I'm going to pray for truth for me and for my generations? I'm going to pray in that the blessings flow onto the third and fourth generation. Keep speaking truth, because that's what our promises are. You don't see them because you just keep operating with people. I'll go ahead and get the vaccine because I just got to go to Italy. I mean, think of the decisions we've made. The world is at stake, and the president has done all of it. And now with the Board of Peace, and we're out of the WHO, and we're out of the WEF, and we're out of NATO, and we're out of UN, and it's now a Board of Peace, because all these other nations have been destroyed just like we've been destroyed, and everybody is sick and tired of it, and everybody is saying enough is enough. It's not just, they've warned America. You've seen it. People have come from other nations going, you guys, they did this to us, and now they're doing it to you. Wake
Yep.
up, they're doing it to you. They've gotten away with it. We have one chance to get this right, but we don't have the strength and ability to do it. So, Father, we just thank you. for doing whatever it takes to wake us up to the point to pray truth into the lives of our family, into the lives of our community, into our leaders. Help us learn how to hate the hater, or love the haters, so the haters have a chance to come to the truth. Because if we get everything united, there's no stopping us. Just like there's no stopping what's going to happen to them. What's going to happen to them is going to happen to them. But where we go one, we go all, because we're going to operate in truth and seek truth, because we want the children and grandchildren to have a great life. We want all of this to end. So consider May 17 in DC. Consider June 27. That's when I've been asked to be there on platform and stay until July 4 in DC. So I've got that under prayer, because I don't have a Jaco as security. But June 27 is 7 days. If you look at it, June 27 to July 4, there you go. So May 17, then they're calling people to come, and I don't know all the details yet. It's just you've got to mark your calendar June 27, and if you can, Sheila, stay through July 4. And now May 17 is lined up for July 4 and 5. But isn't the president going to be in Iowa? I think he's going to be in Iowa. I thought that's what his plan was, Iowa for July 4, 250. This has been such an honor being with you, and just, we haven't been together a little while, and I know I've probably gone over my time. I lost all track of time, because I just enjoy, because Jaco, you get it, and you're seeking it too. I think people appreciate. We're not trying to say we have all the answers. We're just saying, guys, we're going to give you as much as you can, because we care what happens to people.
Absolutely. Yep. Thanks so much, Sheila. It's always a pleasure and honor to have you on. And wow, you speak such amazing things. It's almost like a prayer every time you come on. What you're talking about. Beautiful. Thank you.
Well, and you've been such a blessing. And when you get it, and that's scriptural. Only the deep can speak unto the deep. And when you flow right in this, because it's like a river, and that's what there's songs about this right out of that scripture. As a deer panteth for water, and deep speaks to deep, all of these things start coming together. And there's just been so much truth shared through and with you when we do this. I'm just so honored to be back on with you. It's been a while, and I've missed you guys, but this has just been really great, and I've probably gone over my time. Again, I lose all track of time. So
you're good. Okay. We have plenty of time today, so it worked out good.
Bless you.
Yeah, bless you.
I don't know if you can. I'm seeing what's behind you, and it's like you're not going to be out there on your grill tonight. I mean, the wind, and how much snow are you guys getting?
I think we've gotten a few feet already. It's just blizzard condition. So I've shoveled like 3 times now. So, and I shovel, and our snow blow. You can't get into the corners with it. So I shovel and snow blow 3 times, and you finish, and it's like, what did I even do anything? It's coming in pretty fast.
Well, it's just, we've been seeing it. I mean, and right to your left shoulder, there's something blowing over the top of something else. Over on the fence on this side, you can kind of see it, but on this side, it's like blowing snow in and then blowing it off of something over this way.